with you.
And also with you.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Jesus and his disciples left from there and began a journey through Galilee. But he did not wish anyone to know about it. He was teaching his disciples and telling them, "The Son of Man is to be handed over to men, and they will kill him. And 3 days after his death, the Son of Man will rise." But they did not understand the saying, and they were afraid to question him. They came to Capernaum, and once inside the house, he began to ask them, "What were you arguing about on the way?" But they remained silent. They had been discussing among themselves on the way who was the greatest. Then he sat down, called the 12, and said to them, "If anyone wishes to be first, he shall be the last of all and the servant of all." Taking a child, he placed it in their midst, and putting his arms around it, he said to them, "Whoever receives one child such as this in my name receives me. And whoever receives me receives not me, but the one who sent me." My brothers and sisters, the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
As we concluded the 24th Sunday of Ordinary Time, which focused on the whole week regarding the readings about faith, and faith that is put into action, we come to the 25th week where we see in the three readings the faithfulness of the disciples of Jesus Christ. So we are all called to be disciples of Jesus. And when we answer to that calling, we are put to the test, and our faith is tested. In the first reading, we listened to that faithful servant of God who is keen on the words of the Lord and professes and proclaims the word of the Lord. My rector in the seminary said, when a confident and secure person comes in, all the insecure person will be feeling, threatened, will be threatened. When a disciple of Jesus comes in and is faithful to the word of the Lord, all those who are not living according to the precepts of the word of the Lord will be threatened. And what do? They do what a normal person does. When you're threatened by somebody, what do?
Attack.
Huh?
Attack.
You react, you fight back, right? So, but this time, it's the just servant who is just the mere presence of that just servant puts everybody else who are not following the will of the Lord in question. And they feel threatened. So what do? They plot something because they want to eliminate that threat. Why? They say, if that person preaches that the word is with him and God is with him, let us see if God is really with him. Let us put him to a test. And the test is, let us try his patience. Let us try his calmness, gentleness. Let us see if God will really come and save that person or come to the aid of that person. And so that is what they do. And but we forgot that the authority of a real disciple of Jesus comes from our faithfulness to the Lord, which is not bound on the affirmation of this world, but is bound on the blessings that God has given us. So when you decide to be part of St. Matthew, you decide to be a disciple of Jesus. And other people will attack you. If you haven't heard, well, I won't mention some diocese name. They have a whole 1 hour catechism orientation saying how bad St. Matthew is and how pseudo priest and pseudo church it is formed. So, and they do that. But we don't know what's happening. Why? Because we're busy trying to be faithful to what God has given us. So we keep on doing that. And when I heard that criticism, I smiled and I was happy because it means that we're doing something right. Why? Because somebody's threatened. So I said, if you compare us with the bigger churches, we're just a small church. They can easily crush us like that. No? So we're not even worth it. So, but the problem is, there's a lot of men and women who are faithful to the will of God, and they're trying as best as they can to be reaffirmed in their faith according to what the gospel has demanded us. And so they say that the affirmations of the world is not what a real disciple of Jesus is after, but it's God's blessing. And so we are blessed. And then I just told them that the people who were telling me that they heard that, I told them that just make sure that they spell St. Matthew right. And they give the address too. Because any propaganda is a good propaganda, or St. Matthew. And so in the second reading, St. James talks about worldly power, talks about world structure, and maintaining our power, maintaining our influence, maintaining our control. And so, what do? Well, sadly, as an immigrant in the United States, I learned after 18 years that in the US, it's legal to eliminate your competition. It's legal. You can lie, you can cheat, you can, whatever it is you want to do, just to eliminate the competition. You can do that. And what is the source of conflict in our world? It's a projection of the conflict, the internal conflict that we have in ourselves. So it's a projection of what do I really want in life? Where are my values? Is it in the power that I imagine that I have? Is it in the control that I imagine that I have? Or is it in the affirmation that I am being faithful to the will of God? And so, what is the source of conflict? Well, the reading of St. James says envy, pride, what else? Jealousy. So when you're jealous and you're envy, you see and you ask yourself, why does that person have that and I don't have it? So what am I going to do? I will coop up some things so that I can get what that person wants. And if I can eliminate that person, the better. And so we are invited as disciples of Jesus not to judge others, but to look into ourselves and see, are we playing along with the world power, the world model of power? Are we forgetting and going away on the invitation and the challenge and the demand of the gospel, which is service? That's why St. Mark reinforces that world structure, and Jesus Christ repeated it to his disciples when he said, you want to be great? You want to be successful? Grab a small child, put it in the center, and said, whoever accepts this child accepts me and the one who sent me. Whoever is like this child will enter into the kingdom of heaven. So, what is a child in the context of Jesus Christ? It's a person who has nothing. It's a person who depends on everything. It's a person who cannot give anything. It's a defenseless person. And so we look back to ourselves and see, we really want power. The real power and authority of a disciple of Jesus comes with service. If you do not serve, like St. Paul says, we are just useless servants. We're not serving. And how do we serve? We don't serve by pushing, by making complots, or you scratch my back, I scratch yours. We don't do, I remember when Bishop Peter last Sunday spoke about church polity. So what's the next word that comes to you when you hear polity? Politics. Politics. And the dirtiest politics is in the church. Why? Because we use God so that we can attain power and we can control, manipulate, eliminate. And we're all, we've experienced that in one way or another in our own very church of St. Matthew. So we look back to ourselves and we look deep into ourselves and say, what is God? Where is God calling us to be? Well, God is calling us to be in service. Where is God calling us? God is calling us to be like a child. Helpless, because the only help that we have and defense that we have is coming from God. One without authority, because the real authority that we have is serving those who are needy and who has nothing to give. No? So they are all welcome in our church. And so we have to continue being faithful to that message. I remember 12 years ago, or 15 years ago, I was involved in a St. Matthew member to the community organizations around Anaheim. And I started this nonprofit called South Anaheim Neighborhood Development. And I was looking at constructions. I said, how can I compete with the big constructors in the church, in the city? Then I saw the children. I saw the children, the poorest of the poor in the sector around the resort area, and said, let's focus on the children. So we started our Day of the Child 12 years ago. We started with 11 kids. Then others were attracted with the service, and the police department helped, fire department helped, in short, the city helped, and then the school district helped, and then the neighborhoods helped. So 12, 15 years after, you have 850 children celebrating the Day of the Child. So the next step is make it as a policy that it will be an annual celebration for the city. So the resources are there. I did not touch St. Matthew's General Fund, but it's working. So I said, we keep on doing what we need to do, and we try to be of service. Why do we do it? Not just to promote St. Matthew, not just to say how good I am, but it's looking after the next generation. And if you really want to construct the future, build on the next generation. The helpless, the poor, the needy, and those who cannot give anything. And I am very proud to say that St. Matthew has been very faithful in this message and in this calling that God has given us. We are all disciples of Jesus Christ, and do not forget, the real authority comes in service. It doesn't come in pushing, in manipulating, in doing complots, meeting before meetings. It doesn't come there. It comes from the faithfulness of being able to serve with gentleness, with calm. So they say that where does conflict starts? It starts from within. So we have been doing good for the last pandemic year up to now in coordinating with one another and working with one another and asking each other, how are we going to do this? That is great. Why? Because St. Matthew it's a conglomeration of different interest groups. We have married clergy with interest. We have women clergy with interest. We have, by the way, I just like to put a note on that. Women clergy who are overworked with no recognition. We have the deacons. We have our small communities, our small groups. We came to St. Matthew with something, but what overcomes us is that desire to be able to be of service to one another. It is in our best interest that all our interest group will come together and put aside everything that we want for ourselves, but look into where are we taking St. Matthew? What kind of church are we building for the next generation? So we look into the helpless, we look into those who are needy, and those who cannot give, and we respond to it. And that is our salvation. Once we join and rally around this cause, and we don't bother ourselves with titles, with responsibilities, with big, how do you call it? Yeah, titles. If we don't look at that and we just focus on the service that we need to do, most probably we will be here for the next generation. But if we keep to ourselves, St. Matthew will die with us. But if we go on looking outside of ourselves in service, and our service should be innocent. Innocent means there's no malice in it. That's what I like about St. Matthew. That's why they can easily manipulate us, because somebody can go in and they just, and then everybody believes it. Why? Because we're so trusting. We're so, what else? We're so innocent. So somebody else can take advantage of us. And so, what is our salvation as a community? We join force and we build this community. Why? Because this community is for the kids, for the children. We have the kids immediately, but on the second level, those who are marginalized. Who are the marginalized people here? Who are the poor people here? I ask in the Spanish community, who are poor here? Raise your hand. And a woman raised her hand. I am poor, Father. Okay, Sonia, can you tell me how many pairs of shoes do you have? What color, Father? Poor are what Mark and Luke says, the material poor. But at the same time, what St. Matthew says, the spiritual poor, those who are outcast, those who are downtrodden, those who can be rich in material things, but they can't find meaning in their lives. So St. Matthew has a lot to offer. And we are, I told this to the clergy, we are an interesting bunch of people. And once people see our innocence, our honest desire to serve, and to express our faith into action, you don't know how strong is that and how powerful is that it is. It will attract a lot of people. Why? We need models in our society today. And I believe and strongly believe that St. Matthew is one of those models. I felt that 18 years ago. I still feel that 18 years after. And so I'm very proud to be part of this interesting bunch of people who are here to praise God and service our community, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.